Hey, everybody, and welcome to the realm. I'm Brian.
I'm still rich.
I'm still Rob.
All right. Wait.
All right.
Now I'm still rich. Okay, no, I'm not. You have to be on.
Great.
You have to be on YouTube.
I was just gonna say that's great radio for all the people not on
Yeah.
YouTube. Call you Dr. Drew.
Well, you know.
All right, everybody. This week, to go with our what am I calling it? Not Frighttober.
Scaretober or something you call it?
Scaretober.
Scaretober. There you go.
For the realm's Scaretober. This week we're bringing you scary movies. We've already reviewed Friday the 13th Part 6, so we've kind of talked about that. Coming up, we're going to have
Part 8. We hit that one to death, and we don't need to talk about that one
again. Yeah. We actually have Freddy versus Jason coming up, and we get into Part 8. Rich loves it. It's his favorite. So if anybody,
Part 8.
Yeah, he cannot.
If anybody has a fan of Part 8,
I'm going to tell you my favorite part for Part 8. Tell me if you didn't think this was the best part. They're on the deck of the ship. Freddy's standing there getting ready to swing at the one guy. He starts climbing up the pole. He gets all up the pole. He looks down. Jason's looking at him. He turns around and Jason's right behind him, beats the shit out of him. Now, how the hell did he get up that goddamn pole that fast?
He didn't. The movie's fucking horrible.
I'm like, wait a second here. I think I missed a part.
What about the rock and roll girl in the beginning?
Yeah.
Who is a rock and roller, but she's not even playing the guitar.
No,
it's a cassette tape with a guy holding a boombox, and then she just pretends that she plays the guitar and makes music videos.
And she shakes her hair all over the place, and
Oh, it sucks.
Here we go again.
But Kelly Hu is in it. Well, so this whole episode, we're going to be talking scary movies, so that counts. But if you want to hear us talk about Freddy versus Jason, that's going to be coming up. But when we think about scary movies, I know Gina was real interested in kind of the idea of scary movies. And as human beings, we have all of these emotions that we have. Fear is a big emotion that we all have, but we like to have controlled fear. That's why we like roller coasters. We like pushing the envelope with things, but in a controlled way. And that's where scary movies come in. Not everybody likes scary movies for that reason, because some people can't handle that. But for the people that like that little bit of fear or tenseness with some of these movies, or the suspense in a controlled environment, I think that's really what the draw to the whole idea of scary movies. Then you start breaking it down into subgenres. You have a horror movie, which traditionally would have been more of a universal monster, right, Rob? That's kind of when you think about a horror movie. Classically, that's kind of where you would think of that, right?
Age.
Right, the Golden Age.
Classic horror.
Yep. And then we get into the suspense thrillers, like Psycho, although Psycho was really kind of the forefront of that suspense with being a slasher. And that takes you right into your slasher movies that took off. My favorite period. You get the slasher movies of the 80s and the 90s. And then we start getting into the other genres of torture porn comes out in the 2000s. You get your Saw movies. And then we had a little bit of the renaissance of the trying to be a little bit more classic with the paranormal type
like
scary
Paranormal
movies.
Activity movies, you mean?
Right, you got
Blair Witch.
See, but even those fall under like found footage. Like that's another little subgenre.
That's one of my favorite genres right there.
Interesting. So a lot of them get into that Venn diagram.
We do some of our own found footage, isn't that right, Rob?
Right, because I think that's the situation, and
makes you feel like you're part of that.
Right, because you've done it has a more realistic feeling, I think, to it. I think that's part of that whole thing. For me, at least, that's what
I agree.
Yeah,
and there's everybody can do it, so everybody puts out one, but there's a lot of crap, and I've sat through tons of these movies, but there are some real gems out there.
You know, so you get, well, what are some of them? Like, what are some of the ones that, I mean, everybody knows Blair Witch Project.
Blair Witch is the one that started it all, I think, for the found footage, right? That was the first found
it's
footage
what
one.
Brought it to the forefront because we have I think it was the last broadcast was in the 80s, I think, and that was found footage. Man Bites Dog, which was in the 90s, about a serial killer that hired a camera crew to follow him around to document everything. They actually, it's a pretty entertaining movie. They actually come across a rival serial killer who has his crew too, and then there's a big shootout.
Really?
It's interesting, but
I mean, Blair Witch is the one that really everybody I think knew.
Blair Witch is what really set it off.
Put it on the map. Because then you get all the Paranormal Activity movies that are all the found footage ones. I thought there was a couple. There wasn't a recent one that came out that was like a found footage, like within the last year or two. It was that type of movie. What was it? What was it called?
I didn't see it. That come out.
I didn't see it.
Mungo and was a really good one. There's a bunch of Bigfoot ones that came out that were really good in the recent years.
Yeah, well, there you go. There's another one. The cryptozoology type movies too, not just
There's UFO. There's a lot of UFO movies.
Yep, UFO.
And even one of the Bigfoot movies comes as an angle that the Bigfoot are aliens, and it's a found footage. So
we've talked about that before, yeah.
Yeah,
because that's one of the theories out here with that Beast of Bray Road. Some of the things I sat through and listened to, that's a theory has something to do with extraterrestrials and
their love for the Bray Road.
Yeah. I mean, so what about Close Encounters? Thriller? A thriller? Would that be considered a sci-fi thriller? How would you?
Sci-fi, but is it really horror? I mean, that's more sci-fi.
Or sci-fi?
Sci-fi suspense.
Okay, yeah.
Because when you think about sci-fi horror, Alien is the first one that,
But see, that's monsters, and that's what horror movies to me. I mean, that's almost all I watch. 97.9% of all the movies I watch are horror movies. And I watch them all. I have this massive silent movie horror collection. I watch Nosferatu probably 10 times a year. I love that movie. And other black and white ones like Vampire from 1930. But there's, it's the scary, it's the fear, the monsters and the supernatural that have always drawn me to it. But that's how I was raised. I can remember watching horror movies as far back as I can remember. Sat with my mom watching these horror movies in her room with my sister, and my dad would be out in the TV in the main room watching PBS and Leopards and stuff. And we would be watching The Sentinel and Let's Scare Jessica to Death, Burnt Offerings, Trilogy of Terror. I remember watching these movies and being a real young kid. And I mean, I've been into it forever, and it's always to this day, I'm still drawn to the supernatural and to the monster. To me, that's the fear, I guess, more of a fear of unknown as opposed to the more realistic, like the torture thing doesn't creep me out, but it doesn't interest me. And in a way it doesn't, I don't know. To me, it's like so far-fetched in a way. But I think that when we talk about how does that affect society, or how does that reflect society, I guess I should say. The people who get into that, I think about that a lot, the torture, Saw, Hostel, or even like the Purge movies to me aren't horror movies. I mean, I guess the whole situation would be really scary, right? Said it should happen, but
there's not really a monster. There's not really a monster involved.
No, but in the movie. I also think about when we were kids, we talk about monster movies, but kids nowadays are talking about if the Purge was real, the first person I would kill would be, and I mean, that's got to be a kind of a weird conversation, especially in today's day and age. But never were really into the movies like that, like slasher movies like Scream. But if it's a slasher movie where it's like Jason or Michael would always been more interesting because
Right.
you're more monster.
Right.
Right. So that was it for me as far as like, that's how I always went to, was the monster and ghosts.
So, Rich, when you think about scary movies, so Rob, it sounds like you like the found footage stuff, and you're a big fan of the monster genre. You like the, not necessarily universal monsters, but you like the idea of the other. There's something, and it's not a person in a mask who's coming to get you. It's something else.
Right. It's always been the whole creature, vampires, werewolves, Godzilla, and even...
What about Godzuki?
Godzuki, come on, man. Well, I have every Godzilla movie and watched them all a bazillion times.
But he's so cute.
It is cute. But nonetheless, there's just, even with like silent movies, right? It's just the graininess gives it a creepiness, that old kind of skipping footage, the black and white.
I was going to ask you that how you said that you have like all of the silent films, and you have like, Nosferatu and all of these. Do those ones hit a different way because of that? I think that's what you were kind of getting into, is that it's, especially because you have music that's telling a story, and you do have that graininess, and there's something with the monsters when you see it presented that way.
It's the imagery, and that's part of the art of film, is the imagery and the cameras and the angles and the lightings. But they did what they could with what they had, and it just looks creepy, even from a still. Because Nosferatu, as just an example, because I do love this movie, but I mean, when I was a kid and I used to read about monster movies and read about vampires or whatever, I remember seeing those pictures before seeing the movie, and they were so creepy looking. I couldn't wait to see that movie, and I can still remember the day I first seen that movie. Like on PBS on a Saturday at noon, and it was raining, but it was summer and the doors were open. I completely remember it. I also seen Nosferatu in the theater with a guy playing the pipe organ through the whole movie.
Ooh!
In the studio, or in the theater. That's like
very cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, Rich. So when we think about that, with where do you what do you think of scary movies? What's your favorite type? Where do you come down on the scary movies?
Well, I'm probably different than both you guys. I've never been a big scary movie guy. I'll watch them. Oh, it is what it is. I mean, I watch them, but if I'm presented with a range of movies, I don't automatically go to the scary or the horror movie. I've seen all I've seen most of the, when they come out, the franchise stuff, Halloween, Freddy. Did I see every single one of them? No, I didn't. And I can sit here and say I haven't seen them. As you guys know, and we've talked about, I started watching all the Freddy movies over from the beginning because I really didn't remember what I've seen and what I haven't seen. Some of it I wish I didn't see again. Other ones were pretty good or interesting. I mean, saying if you've seen one, you've seen them all. I don't know if that fits, but it seems like all the Freddy movies, it has the same.
If you were going to look up horror movies though to watch, what would you look for?
Probably like the Halloween or the Friday the 13th. Those type of movies are probably the ones that I would watch more than anything. I have seen them. I'm going to probably start watching them a little bit more now that. And I guess up until recently, you didn't have as easy access to get to some of that stuff. You had to find a way to watch it. Now you've got it. It's you can bring up Movie Box. You could bring up on HBO Max or whatever. That's where I'm watching all the Friday the 13th movies. I mean, so they're a little bit easier to find if you want to watch them, and you can binge watch them, which makes it nice because then you're watching everything back to back. So then it kind of you get to see what you want to see, and you're like, okay, now I'm into it a little bit. Before when they first came out back in the 80s or whatever, you watched one and you had to wait for the next one to come out. And I guess those are the type of movies I would go to and I would watch. I remember See, the Exorcist type stuff, I know that's like a big number one horror movie that people are going to say is a great movie. I probably have seen it. I don't remember much about it other than the main parts that everybody knows about. Saw movies, I'm not really into. I know my kid thinks they're the greatest thing since sliced bread, and I remember seeing like a couple of them when they first came out. Watched them, never followed them along.
Yeah, you've seen one, you've seen them all.
Right. And we just
the first one actually kind of stood on its own really well. It was
the first one was probably the best one,
and you hadn't seen something like that, and it seemed like a contained story. And then after that, it's kind of when they went, we have to get crazier and gorier and sillier.
Here's how crazy it got.
You know,
here's how crazy it got, and I didn't realize it because I didn't watch them all. We went and saw. I have seen Saw 10. Got to say that correctly because otherwise it's.
You've seen Saw?
Seen 10.
Seen Saw 10.
Anyway, well, then I find out, I go to watch it. Well, it's not, it didn't happen. It's not chronological. That one movie actually slides in between 1 and 2. Okay, so if I watched Saw 1 and Saw 2 and Saw 3, now Saw 10 falls in between 1 and 2. So if you're following the storyline, you can't watch them in order of Saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because it might be Saw 1, then 10, then 3, then 5, then 4. It's like I can't follow that. My mind is blown on that. Now, when they came out, obviously that's not how they came out, but now you're able to watch them. So now there's if you go to YouTube, you have all these people that are on YouTube that break down all these movies and want to tell you all the little tricks. Oh, this is how this was done. This is the main storyline. Oh, here's all the Easter eggs in the movie. Here's all this and that. Well, then you find out that none of these movies are in order, supposedly. And it's like,
is there really a storyline that crosses and brings all the Saw movies together?
Apparently there is. I didn't watch enough of them to be able to tell you that, but that's what I've been told. Because like in this Saw 10 movie, there's parts in it that reference the first one, but they don't reference anything after part 2 or after part 1, because I don't want to give away any spoilers for this, so I don't want to do it. But
I'm just
there's things that happen. There's things that happen or are going to happen that are in 10 that couldn't have happened in Saw 3 or 4. Let's put it to you that way. So I don't know.
Retconning bullshit.
It's weird. It's
retroactive continuity.
You know,
and it's bullshit.
I like the thriller movies. I like the old monster movies. I like all that stuff. The Godzilla, all that stuff. Just as a thriller, sci-fi type thing. I like that. I don't know. The found footage thing I really didn't get into too much. I've seen a couple of the Paranormal Activity movies. I think I've seen Blair Witch one time, and I thought that was kind of crazy. I still reference parts of it every now and then when I get a bad salad. Because some of the, when they wake up in the tent and there's like sticks and twigs, every now and then I'll get a salad that looks that way. And I go, I got a Blair Witch salad.
So Blair Witch salad.
Yeah, well, so the newer stuff coming out, I think they make use of AI and, computer generated imagery. They use all that stuff really good, but that makes you appreciate the earlier movies when they didn't have that. And
exactly,
I think you got it was a better effect, I think, without all that stuff, without the CGI. The first Jason movies and all that stuff. We've just talked about Freddy versus Jason and the different CGI stuff they had in that movie, which it made the movie good. I mean, it fit well, but
less is more when you're doing that kind of stuff.
When you start thinking back to the movies you used to watch. They didn't have any of that stuff, but they were still good, and they were good. They were good on their own. So,
if you wanted to poke an arrow through Kevin Bacon's neck, you had to come up with a way. Tom Savini, shout out to Tom Savini and all his special effects in Friday the 13th, because he found a way to stick an arrow through Kevin Bacon's neck, and it looked great for the shoestring budget that a lot of those movies had to work with. All of that stuff reads so much better than seeing a bunch of CGI. it looks real because it is real. It's tangible. You could actually tell that it exists in the physical world,
right?
And that goes a long way.
And another thing I think I noticed watching a lot of these movies, when you started watching some of these earlier movies, like in the 80s and stuff like that, there wasn't a lot of star power in the movies. You had a Johnny Depp placed here or there, a Kevin Bacon placed here or there, or Jamie Lee Curtis or whatever. But now you start seeing these movies and like there's a lot of people in there that you can, I've seen them in this, I've seen them here, I've seen them there. I think when you didn't see those people in other things, you didn't have a preconceived image of anything else they've done. So you're watching the movie and you don't have any way to sway your opinion on what the character is. I think now if you've seen a movie and you've seen somebody on a TV show, your mind you remember them as a different character somewhere sometimes. And I think back in the earlier movies, the original Halloweens and the original Friday the 13th and stuff like that, you didn't have that. Even back then, I mean, what was the one? The one had what the hell's his name? Who am I thinking of from Back to the Future?
Michael J. Fox.
Oh, Crispin Glover. No,
yeah, he was in the one. Yeah,
in part 4. Yeah, the final Friday.
Yeah, and he didn't make it to the end, so he could have been a big star at that point because
Well, neither was Johnny Depp when he did Nightmare on Elm Street.
It's like that was like some of their first movies, right?
Jamie Lee Curtis was a nobody when Halloween came out.
She's probably about the only one that stuck through the whole film series of any of those films, I think.
Right. But
really, right? I mean, from the original Halloween to the very end. I mean,
we also had Corey Feldman in that movie too. You had Corey Feldman, exactly. And you had he went on in the 80s, especially, really kind of had a catapult after Goonies, and and he was actually pretty effective in that movie in part 4. That's probably my second favorite. If anybody who listened to our review of Friday Part 6, that's my favorite, but probably my second favorite is probably part 4. I thought that one, I don't know what you think, Rich, because they're fresh for you, but that one I think was probably maybe the second best. I thought that was
good. I like Jason X.
Job in that one.
Jason X was okay.
Yeah, Jason X was a lot of fun.
It was okay. That was a fun one, I think, for me. But the first, nothing matches up to the first couple. I don't think. I think the first couple of any of those series are the best. The originals are always the best, I think. Maybe because at the time it was new and you didn't see anything like that before. You had before that, like I said before, The Exorcist, that's in the 70s or whatever like that. So in the 80s, I think that was Halloween and Friday the 13th and stuff. Those were like the first actually slasher movies, I think, right? I mean, where they had one villain or monster or whatever the case may be that's the center of attention for, that's the antagonist,
Yeah,
don't get me started on the music. Music makes the movie all the better.
Yes.
You're not going to have Air Supply playing in Friday the 13th and then say, man, that was the best movie ever. You got to have.
Could have been in part 8. Could have been in part 8.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. You're right.
You could have put it in there and it would have fit. Yeah, but when you get into the slash, because again, anybody who's been listening to the podcast knows I love the 80s. I love the aesthetic of the 80s. I love Rob. I love the 80s. I love that aesthetic, and I love the movies from the 80s. I love the action movies, the comedies, and that's probably something that we had more of, Rich, growing up, is the comedies of that.
That's what I mean. Really stuck out more with us. Yeah, I never gravitated straight to the horror movies. I like the comedy movie. I like the comedy, drama, and all that stuff. I really don't give a shit about that.
Right.
Not. I'm sure they're great. Don't anybody send a hate mail that Rich doesn't like drama movies. I'm more comedy. I like the scary movies. I like more of the part 8 before I'd watch a drama, I think.
Yep, it's funny, at least. It works as a comedy.
That's what I was more into. I like the comedy movies more than anything else. But give me a good horror flick, and I'm fine with that. But to watch 10 of them, that's a lot.
Yeah,
that's just a lot.
I feel that the movies in the 80s were great. There was a lot of good ones that came out, but I don't know, time moves on, maybe. I never was big.
Not for me, Rob.
I know, and I've never been really big into the pop culture part of it or even mainstream. I'm not saying I don't watch mainstream cinema because I'm obviously a huge Star Wars fan and
Right.
superhero movie fan. On top of the horror movie, but like back in the '80s, I mean, I think of the Dawn of the Deads and Return of the Living Dead, Night of the Demons, movies
Hellraiser.
like that. Those
Hellraiser,
kind of Zombie.
Yep.
I watched a lot of the B flick, gory
Yes.
horror movies, and even like Slumber Party Massacre.
Slumber Party Massacre is not bad. I have a very fond memory in recent history when I was hospitalized with pancreatitis. The night before I went to the hospital, that was the movie I was watching, trying to hope whatever problem I had was going to go away. And I don't know, shit, maybe that movie caused it, now that I'm thinking about it.
It could be. Was it the one with the dance scene where he just stops in the hallway and he starts doing a crazy dance scene for like no reason? That might have been that might have been
No. You're right. No, mine was part one. It was definitely part one.
But
it was the first one.
Even now when I watch, like, I don't know if you guys do Shudder. I know you talked about a lot of pay services, but Shudder's like like $6-7 a month. And I watch a lot of foreign. The Irish make really good horror movies. Asia, Japan, Korea, they make great horror movies. And I spend a lot of time watching the old stuff, and well, not a lot of the old stuff, but a lot of the newer stuff's foreign or independent, still with good budgets, and they get neglected, I feel. There's a lot of good scares out there, and that just goes back to me looking for fear, looking for that scare, chasing that dragon for that, sitting in my mom's bedroom watching those horror movies that I didn't even know what the hell they were about, but they were scary.
So what would be better? A scary if a movie came out, it was a scary movie about something that we're all familiar with to be scared of, or something that came out that's something new that you never heard of before, that all of a sudden this is the new thing that's supposed to scare you. What would be the bigger draw, do you think? The unknown, or go back to something you're familiar with?
Because I will watch the trailer and make that decision for myself, kind of thing. And then I may look at some ratings if I'm uncertain. But I always like to try new things. But I mean, when it comes to, like I said, the genres that I like, I always go back to. I mean, don't you think that's why most people watch horror movies, are for the fear of it? Because when you watch, like, is there like that same kind of horror feeling when you're watching the first Nightmare on Elm Street, right? And that was really a genuinely creepy movie. As opposed, is that the same kind of scare as you're going to get from watching a Saw movie?
No.
See, but those are different. I think those are different. Those are different kinds of, quote.
They are. It's a different, it's a completely different genre.
Right, and that's kind of that's why the scary movie it's so broad, because you do have all those different elements. When I watch the 80s movies, or even the 90s, when you get into the Scream movies, I watch all that stuff because I like the familiarity of it. I like the nostalgia. I like the way that those movies were made. I like watching documentaries about them and learning how they made those at that time. So for me, there's an interest in that 80s, 90s slasher. Then, for me personally, the thing that sets me on edge, that is not necessarily being scared, but it's that weird suspense feeling, like a movie like The Strangers, where those are the ones where you just go, Jesus fuck. Like, it really makes you check the door at the end of the night. As opposed to like Saw, where you get into those movies and it's more of a, oh God, I can't watch that because it's just so fucking, it's gross what you're showing me, So I feel like you have what are those things that you're looking for, and each individual person is different about that. Like, I like the comfort of the 80s stuff, but if we want to sit down and we want to watch a thriller or something like that, we usually are looking for something closer to like The Strangers, or even a movie like, I wouldn't call it a scary movie, but it's a thriller, a movie like Breakdown with Kurt Russell. Like those types of real world feelings that just really, as our mom would say, too breathtaking. Just you can't watch that. There's a great movie with Owen Wilson, No Escape. That one is a very suspenseful movie. It's not really a scary movie, but it's a really suspenseful movie. People should check that out if you're ever in need of a suspense movie. But this is scary movies. And for me, those are the ones that get me, are kind of those, The Strangers or Last House on the Left. That kind of thing is one where, or what's the other one? What's the one with the crazy methed out zombies in the desert that was a remake?
The Hills Have Eyes.
The Hills Have Eyes.
Yeah, but you know what's scary about those? It's because those are freaking real people. People are scarier than people are scarier than
the Hills Have Eyes is like a ripoff of Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah,
the Hills Have Eyes is the Chainsaw Massacre without a chainsaw.
Wrong Turn.
But the Wrong Turn. There you go. Now you have another like. Isn't he like a kind of a creature like Hatchet, where he's some kind of deformed hillbilly, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So now you're back at the Jason, Michael Myers type of killers.
Yeah.
And now you're putting it back. I guess my perception of horror and a good scare is not that stuff that, I mean, who knows? We could have a purge next year, you know what I mean? Or there's probably people already doing Saw stuff. We just haven't caught him yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, good point.
And that's more real life suspense. It's not like, it's Halloween, we're going to watch a good horror movie. Let's put on Hostel. To me, it's like, yeah, we're going to put on Frankenstein.
So if you were going to go somewhere and you were going to be someplace for a weekend, what movie would you bring with to watch, Rob? Just on an unrelated topic. On an unrelated topic.
If I was going to go somewhere for the weekend...
Let's say me and you were going ghost hunting for a weekend and we were going to be somewhere and we had access to a Blu-ray player and we were going to watch a movie.
Oh, man.
What scary movie would you bring with to watch?
That I would say, you got to check this out?
Yes.
I'm looking over here at all my my movies and going, well, you're really putting me on the spot. Because if it was me, I mean, I would go back to some of the movies I've talked about.
Yeah.
Okay. Like 30 Days of Night.
Oh
30 Days of Night's pretty good.
Cloverfield's right here. Found footage.
Not a scary movie, though.
It's got a monster.
It does have a monster, but Pacific Rim has a monster, too.
But now, put it in context, though. If we're on a ghost hunt someplace for a weekend, say we're in a scary location, you put something on like that, I think it's going to ramp up that fright factor just a little bit, right?
Right.
I mean, it's going to give you that. It's not like you're watching it outside in the backyard in July with the sun out and you're watching it on TV with your buddies outside. So you have a different effect if you're in the middle of nowhere someplace and you're like, let's watch something that's scary. Let's scare the shit out of ourselves.
No,
you can probably watch some of that stuff and be freaked out by the time it's over.
Right. And so way back when, film was new and we had silent movies and we go in that golden age era of when sound and they got down the film without the graininess and quality for that time. And if you ever watch the original 1931 Frankenstein, in the beginning, there's a guy who comes out the curtain and would be looking at the audience, and he goes through this whole spiel about, this movie has been found to be very scary. Leave now if you have a weak heart. And that stuff was horrifying back then, right?
Yep.
What if we would have, at that time, that was horrifying. What if back then we presented them with something like Strangers? How do you think that would have been received? I think it would have been forbidden.
Right. That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a different... It's what we've, I guess, become more accepting in society, right?
Right.
Where that goes, I don't know.
I would bring House.
You know what? I haven't seen that in a while.
Because Greatest American Hero is in it, so.
Yes.
Yes. And Norm from Cheers. George Wendt is in it too, so you can't go wrong with House. Man, scary.
They say biggest bitch under sun. That's my mom. Heart of gold, though.
Heart of gold.
House one's kind of scary, but House 2's kind of funny.
What about part 3?
Because every time, is that the one? 2's with the cowboy, right?
I don't know if that's 2 or 3. I like the one with the cowboy.
I know, because I sit there every time I get a box of Kleenex. They keep coming and keep coming.
Yes, I love that. That one, it has nothing to do with House, but it would. God damn it! Now I gotta look it up to see if that one is part 2 or 3, because one of them was a sequel and it sucked.
So, if they were presented in the 30s with The Stranger, do you think they would see that as a horror movie or a crime drama? How do you think they would something like that?
I feel like they would probably, oh boy, because they didn't even really have the idea of exploitation movies at that time either. You know, like A Last House on the Left, you know, kind of falls under that heading of a horror exploitation type. The movie's just made to be gory and offensive. Yeah, boy, I'm not sure what they would. God, what? I don't know. I don't know what they would categorize that as. It is part 2, by the way. The second story. That's the.
That's what I thought it was. I thought it was the cowboy.
That's the one with the cowboy.
They just
I like that one.
And keep coming. Yeah.
You know, it was interesting when Rich was talking about the actors, where when you would have kind of, you would have your Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, where you would get some of these people that would go on to do things. You have Scream that comes along and does kind of the opposite of that, and they give you Drew Barrymore. We all knew who Drew Barrymore was. We hadn't seen her in a while. You knew who she was from tabloids. So when a movie like that starts with her, we're all focused on her and what's going to happen. So then when they kill her, spoiler alert, so when they kill her right away in that first scene, that grabs you by the balls in that movie, because you're like, holy shit, they just killed the star of the movie. What are you going to do now? And Scream was very slick, and that ushered in that next phase of the slasher movie, which is the slick, smart, Kevin Williamson written, super self-referential type horror movies. But Scream probably did that the best, and after watching all of them and getting pissed off more and more when a new one comes out, it proves you can't catch lightning in a bottle twice with that franchise. The first one, you just can't. You can't get that back.
I feel like they never caught lightning in a bottle with that whole series.
Really? You didn't like the first one?
No, I don't like any of them. I just don't. It's just some guy in a crappy costume killing people, and the best part to me was when they're all standing outside. Just come and get us, because they're all just standing there shaking their boobs. That was like the best part of the whole thing for me.
That was I Know What You Did Last Summer.
What was that? Know What You Did Last Summer? See,
that was I Know What You Did Last Summer with Jennifer Love Hewitt saying, "What are you waiting for?" And she's
and they're
walking around in the rain. And
I'm like, yeah.
Now, I am willing to give Scream 6 a chance because it takes place in New York City, and I think that we need some redemption for Manhattan. So I'm willing to give it a chance to see if maybe it's a little scarier and, gives justice to a whole thriller or horror movie in New York City. So
I don't know this for sure, but they may be in New York by way of Canada again, just like Jason Takes Manhattan.
I know that there's a.
I'm not positive.
So at least they have that going for them. At least they did something that makes you feel like you're in New York City, not just in a back alley or whatever, or running around in the street. Mm-hmm. Didn't do a lot to sell me that we were in New York City.
Did you like Jason Goes to Hell? Because I don't like that movie either. It's
a movie that I've probably seen once. I mean, I know that as a kid, I seen the first 3 a bunch of times. I actually seen 3 in the theater. After that, it was kind of loose what I had seen. and that was kind of it. I've seen the remake once, and I remember I didn't hate it, and that's it. Like I said, I watch different kinds of horror movies for different reasons.
I didn't care for it.
Okay, good.
Like I said, Jason X, I liked that one, but I'm gonna have to start. Apparently, I have to watch some Halloween movies.
So, yeah, Microsoft is having some Halloween sale, and I originally rented that Freddy vs. Jason. It was like $1.54 or something on Amazon, but I didn't finish it. So I seen that sale, and it was like for like $8, $7-8. It was Jason Goes to Hell, 10, and Freddy vs. Jason. So I bought that, so I can watch all three of those, and I can give you my review of Jason Goes to Hell.
It's funny that you said about Microsoft, because in Jason X, they talk about the Microsoft wars or the Microsoft conflict, that's actually pretty funny.
Yep, they did.
I like that the one guy too is like, it's okay, he just wanted his machete back. That was very funny in Jason X. That was
we're gonna preserve him because he's worth lots of money. And then he's killing everybody. Let's not kill him. Let's try to take him alive. Yeah, he's not.
And then make him stronger.
Yeah, that was
Uber Jason.
Yeah, that was.
I remember I liked it. There was a hot cyborg chick. That's what I remember.
Yeah,
I need to rewatch that.
She ended up just being a head, though.
Yeah. Yeah, she was a Terminator there at the end.
At the end.
Yeah. Well, I think we probably, you know what? We didn't beat this thing to death. There's plenty more that we can go on about scary movies. So we're probably going to have to follow up with another episode at some point with maybe some other stuff. If you see some other things, and, maybe we can make some lists of some of the stuff that, we've caught, and kind of follow back up on this at a later date. I think there's probably more that we can kind of cover.
Could do a whole other separate podcast on just horror movies.
That would go on into perpetuity.
Oh my God.
It's not a bad idea, though.
We could do it forever.
Hey, Rob, do you remember the movie in the 80s, The Gate?
Oh, yes. Yes, with the little kid. That little kid in that hole.
What the hell is his name?
Oh, I don't remember that kid's name.
Fuck.
And there's those little monsters in it.
Yes.
You know why? It's a monster movie.
Yeah. That movie scared the shit out of me. I was from 87.
It was a good one.
Stephen Dorff.
Creepy elements.
That's who it is. Yes. I was telling Danny about that one, and I'm like, oh man, that movie scared the shit out of me. Like that's one as a kid.
Because it's actually
really freaked me out.
Actually, it's they just put it on Shudder, and I was thinking about
really?
It. Yeah.
Yeah, that one is
You can't go. I'm not. Shudder could sponsor us. Hint, hint. Right, but I don't mean. But
pick us up, Shudder.
Yeah, pick us up, Shudder. But it's I don't know, man. It's not. It's pretty cheap for just a bunch of horror movies, and they put out some good stuff themselves.
What about Troll? Remember Troll?
Yeah.
that was on the other day.
Troll movies.
Oh,
wasn't into Gremlins, but Critters was entertaining because it was super gory.
Yeah, Critters had to go that extra mile. That's when we started. See, we have a whole nother genre we didn't talk about, and that was when we started getting into the advent of VHS and the straight to video, because that's when you started getting your Ghoulies and your Critters. And your Silent Night, Deadly Night, too. Rob, tell me you've seen Silent Night, Deadly Night.
I have not seen Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Fuck. We need to have a movie night and watch
I hear
Silent
a homework
Night,
assignment coming up.
Oh, man. No, the homework assignment for everybody is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. We got to do that. That's a great Halloween movie for us to talk about.
It's pure Halloween.
Yes. That one is an underrated...
I like the song,
that gets
which again goes back to the music.
Oh, you're right.
The Silver Shamrock song.
Till Halloween.
There's a song, The Season of the Witch.
8 more days till Halloween.
Ain't that song?
Silver Shamrock.
Oh yeah, that's music you play from an ice cream.
Beep boop beep boop beep boop beep boop beep boop beep boop beep boop. Yeah,
that's the ice cream truck should have that playing.
Yeah, damn.
Moving back and forth and stuff.
Yeah, Rob's doing the head and everything. I love it. Yeah, Halloween 3.
That movie was shocking, I guess, in a way, because as a kid, I had PTSD from being at the drive-in, seeing Prophecy about the deformed bear. Do you remember Prophecy?
I remember Prophecy.
Okay, that kid in the sleeping bag. Like, you don't kill kids.
That you don't in that, but Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, everybody. If you haven't watched it, watch it because we're going to talk about it at some point here. But with that, I think we're going to wrap up for this episode. Rich, where can everybody find us?
At my house once again. Oh,
party!
Everybody to Rich's house. We're watching Halloween 3
coming to you from the home office in Wind Point, Wisconsin.
All right.
ConnectedRealm@gmail.com. If you want to reach out to us, we take suggestions for any episodes. If you have any comments on this one, if you want us to do an episode on something, if you just want to say, hey, if you have any spooky stories for us to share for the rest of this month, we're doing for Weird Weekly News. In place of that, we're doing some scary stories from listeners, and we're doing some movie reviews, as Brian said. Probably have another one coming up for, I don't know, one of these following Mondays.
You've set us up for a scary story episode. Now that you put your location out, you set yourself up for a stranger's situation. Yeah.
I didn't say my address, though.
Close. It's not a big town.
Well,
yeah, you can get lost in it, though.
Yeah, maybe. They'll give up and they'll just be like, let's just go back home.
Yeah, we can't find him. He's hard to find. I won't leave my garage door open. I have a scary story to tell about that. Somebody found me because my garage door was open and saw my car. That's a scary story I should bring up. That scared me. Oh my God. I won't go into details, but it's a 4-letter word for footwear. So we won't go into the details of what his name was. But anyway, that being said, connectedrealm@gmail.com. And once again, if anybody has forgot, we do have a paranormal investigation team as well. So
what's it called?
It is called TRPD, the Realm Paranormal Detectives. So
hell yeah,
this is right. We have some investigations coming up. I think we're booked up the rest of the year, which is awesome. So you guys are going to get some content from what we found at these locations. I know we still have some stuff that's going to be getting posted on our last investigation that we're working on. We'll be putting out so everybody can see what we found, what we didn't find. Good stuff happening here at the Realm. If you're not listening, I don't know why. If you are, make sure you tell your friends, because, I mean, it's the place to be, right?
It is the place to be. I mean, Rich's basement.
Woo!
Point.
Woohoo! We got some of our evidence from the Oshkosh Grand Theater is up on our Instagram. So if you guys go over to the Realm Podcast, you can see some of the video, some of the things that we caught there. Let us know what you think.
All right, guys. Until next time, I'm Rich.
I'm Brian.
I'm Rob.
Peace out, everybody. See you next week.